just hit the subscribe button, the red button, underneath this video over to the right, and that'll sign you up on my YouTube channel. And then you can hit the small bell icon, so a little bell will go off and tell you each time I've started to broadcast a new one. I hope you enjoy it. We always refer to the London Blitzkrieg, when Germany bombed London and other British cities continuously, as the finest hour and the lowest point of the fortunes of the British Empire and Great Britain in World War II. But that wasn't Churchill's lowest point. His maximum period of political danger took place between January and July of 1942, when the accumulated mistakes and errors that he had made and that the Allies had suffered, or Britain had suffered, there were no other allies, up until that point in the war, had piled up so high that there were two motions of no confidence in the House of Commons, very rare, and the second one got 50 Conservative MPs to either vote against Churchill or to abstain. The Labour and the Liberal parties, the opposition, were voting with him because they were part of the coalition government. But this Tory rebellion against Churchill, largely led by people who were supporters of Neville Chamberlain and the appeasement policy, really was dangerous and really caused Churchill to lose some sleep and perhaps potentially to have lost his prime ministership. We have to realize the truth of what Churchill once said. Before the summer of 1942, we never won a battle. And after the summer of 1942, we never lost a battle. Churchill's screw-ups in World War II began before he became prime minister, when he urged the invasion of Norway very early in the war, thinking to seize the iron deposits and the other natural resources of Norway and keep them away from the Germans. And he invaded the town of Narvik, Norway, and the German fleet absolutely destroyed him, German air cover, and he had to pull his troops out. His next screw-up was Greece, as after France fell, Hitler began to focus on the Balkans, Yugoslavia and Greece, largely to protect his right flank as he was about to invade Russia. And Churchill made the decision to send a British Expeditionary Force, BEF, to Greece to fight. The BEF had earlier been pulled out of France at Dunkirk. And once again, the Germans overwhelmed them. Churchill did not send enough troops, only about 50,000, and they had to be evacuated. People began to say the BEF stood for Back Every Friday, because they were always having to retreat and having to withdraw. There was, as a result of the submarine warfare, Churchill lost a lot of Britain's major capital ships, including the famous battleship, the Queen Elizabeth. And the Navy was denuded. And as a result, some German battleships that were in Brest in France were able to dash up the channel and go in back through the Baltic to Germany. As Churchill said, right past our front door in the channel without being intercepted. The U-boat killings in the Atlantic were becoming very dangerous for Britain. At the start of the war, Britain was losing about 100,000 tons a month of shipping. By November of 1942, it lost 850,000 tons of shipping, and only a fraction of that could be replaced. Most of it was permanently at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Rommel in Africa had really succeeded where the Italians had failed, and had rocked Britain back to almost the gates of Cairo, about 160 miles from Cairo, at a village that famously was called El Alamein. And in the Far East, Japan had conquered Singapore, that was called the Gibraltar of the East, and was Britain's main base in Asia, and had also overrun Burma, another British colony, and seemed about to be able to conquer India. That would have created a joinder of the German and the Japanese forces, the German coming down from Russia through the Crimea into Iran, and the Japanese coming down from Asia over through Burma into India. And there was a chance of a linkage that would have essentially set up Axis control from Asia to Europe in a continuous band that would have been very, very difficult to defeat. So with all of these piling up, Churchill was in serious political trouble. He was aided because everybody knew that the appeasement period had weakened Britain and that this was not his fault. But increasingly, people began to feel that he was a wild gambler who would send troops where he shouldn't, reminiscent of the Dardanelles in World War I, where he sent troops on an expedition to cut around German lines that proved disastrous. It was only the three events that occurred right in the middle of 1942 that completely turned the war around, saving the West, saving civilization, and in the process saving Churchill. The big one was the Russian defeat of the Germans at Stalingrad. The other one was Montgomery's defeat of Rommel in Africa at El Alamein. And the third was the American sinking of the Japanese aircraft carriers at Midway. Those events marked the turning of the tide in World War II and in Churchill's personal fortunes. This info comes from the book Churchill, Walking with Destiny by Andrew Roberts, a fantastic book. Just about finished with it. It's 1,100 pages long, but well worth the slog. I've just written a new book, 50 Shades of Politics, which is unlike anything I've written before. It's a series of 100 short, 2 pages each, autobiographic essays and stories and vignettes and tales from my career in politics, my time with Clinton, my work in 40 countries around the world and in every state in the country. You can't buy it in bookstores, but you can online at Amazon.com. It's not a heavy lift. It's $13.99 for a paperback and $10.99 for a Kindle. Thanks for watching.